Yeah, tomorrow Colorado plays Boise State for that spot.
And who you like in that? Colorado, you said?
I like Colorado, yeah, as a whole.
Why is that?
They were pretty consistent in their conference at least. Boise State's tough though, coming out of that Mountain West group though, like because they played a tough schedule in terms of how many of their teams got an NCAA tournament. You know what I'm saying?
I've heard a lot of people like Boise, and I just
yeah. A lot of people do. I
don't know
like Colorado because I think they play their game.
I don't know if it's misremembering, but I feel like Boise State always like disappoints in the tournament. When they're like a 7 versus a 10 and they're the 7, they always lose to a 10. And then like if they're the 10 and the 7, then I always want to pick the 7 and they win. Like it's always
talking to something I like to watch. You know what I'm saying? At least I care about.
Absolutely. When did you start watching college basketball? What age was that?
I had to be what's the year Melo and them won? Kansas.
2000. You got drafted 03, so
2003, at least 18 years. 21 years? 21 years.
And all those were being a Kansas fan, right?
Every year. Since Kirk Heinrich and Nick Collinson, they were the first group I ever seen.
I think Nick Collison, I only think of the OKC Thunder, honestly.
Yeah, people forget he was a beast in college. Yeah, he was a nasty in Kansas. And now they just...
Now Kevin McCullough's out, the fifth-year senior. You told me that they needed to get back for this tournament. So they're a 4 seed without him. Do you think they have a chance to slip up in this first round with Stanford, or they should coast by them still?
They should be able to escape Stanford the way they're supposed to. They should be able to probably win around like 10 to 15 and should be able to get to the next round. It's the next round where I think they have too much trouble.
Where it's most likely Gonzaga or a 30-win McNeese team.
And I think McNeese beats Gonzaga, so I think they're the FAU of last year.
And it's a 12 seed. You need at least one 12 seed to win, or your bracket's irrelevant. So
absolutely. I don't disagree.
But in that bracket, besides those two teams, what's your most interesting matchup in there? What's the most must-watch game in this region? When someone sees it on their list, they have to sit down and watch this one for sure.
I think McNeese Gonzaga. I think a 30-win team that no one gets to watch. No one's tuning in for them. Like I said, that FAU effect. No one's watching over there. This year, FAU got more recognition in the AAC, so that was their little blow up this year. So everyone kind of knew they were good. But McNeese is one of those scary teams, and Gonzaga. They got good big guys inside, but if their guards make or break, and it's the NCAA tournament, so you know how that goes.
For sure, and we've talked about it before with the ranked teams this year being older versus younger teams, and where does McNeese fall in that? As for most of us out here, I've never watched a McNeese game, even someone like me who tries to watch them.
Older team.
Older.
That's what they do. Older group.
I was going to ask you who you think wins that game, but you kind of hinted at it before. You do sniff an upset in that one. Okay.
Oh yeah, huge one. I think granted it's Gonzaga, right? For the last maybe 10 years or so, they've lost some big games through our lifetime, especially in the first round. But this is like one of the ones where I just circled it up. I'm like, I don't know if Gonzaga might have to be Gonzaga this year and choke it away.
Always somewhere they are. Somewhere they always are, right? You talked about the big game to watch. The players here. Who do you think is the team to watch here that some of us may not even, besides McNeese could be one, but other than them, is there another team in this region that you see could surprise all of us and cause some ripples in brackets coming up?
I definitely believe, Tennessee's already good. I believe they're a very good basketball team. The team to watch out for, though, does come from their conference, I believe, at a 6 seed, South Carolina. They got a veteran point guard, Meechie Johnson. They're one of the better defensive teams in the country, but they can come out and put an 80-piece. The SEC this year was up in scoring, so everybody scores in that conference, So again, they could see a Tennessee later, and we always say it's tough to beat a team 3 times. That's just the name of the game in sports. So I definitely think South Carolina though can cause havoc down there.
You think there's a shot where that second round game where they get by Creighton, no problem as well? Because Creighton's a team where I've seen a lot of these people making brackets don't want to pick the obvious number one. They've been going with Creighton. So do you think South Carolina can stand with them?
Oh, yeah, definitely. At least, especially on the defensive side of things, they're bought in on that side. For the most part, it's uh, again, I still believe what kind of Creighton team you get. Do you get the ones that come in with the gun loaded and let it go, from three, or do you get the one that decided to go 3 for 18 that day and they can't buy a bucket? It just depends what you get out of them. But they have another old team, veteran team. They've been around the block already, so they're not going to be afraid of the moment.
Who wins the Midwest bracket or Midwest region, I should say?
I had Kansas up there if they were healthy, because we were going to play 6. I believe in cutting the bench as fast as you can, but you got to go right with the big. For me, you just have to go with the big fella. 1 year Purdue has to make a run, and this is a good time to do it. That bracket isn't too crazy. They didn't get to see Tennessee. I believe they played Tennessee earlier in the year. They had beat Tennessee in the Maui Invitational, because Kansas lost to Marquette. In Maui, they beat Tennessee. So even if you run into Dalton Knecht, who's on one of the greatest runs in NCAA history in terms of points per game coming into a program like that, I still believe that Purdue just has that guy to win it all. But, well, Purdue do I get that week? That's all,
Because Purdue, when they come out, man, when they are on fire, you don't understand why they don't win multiple national championships with Edey and the crew. But then you watch them in those games where they don't, like, last year in the tournament where they faced Fairleigh Dickinson off rip. And that's the Purdue that we all have come to know and expect on these times. So we'll see. So my favorite region here, and we were talking about how a lot of people think the East is the big one. I personally think the South is the big one here. I love the South. I think there are a lot of teams in this one where you can make an argument that they win the region. But so I'm sure you've seen the South here. What's your matchup here? What's the big matchup that we're gonna watch, and it's gonna come down to the wire? You think 2 tough teams?
Like you touched on, you said the whole thing. Barstool guys, Wisconsin, James Madison, off rip.
And the Big Cat PFT game.
Yeah. Shout out to the boys. But definitely that Wisconsin James Madison matchup. It's the same kind of team. In my opinion, you match up well. If you're gonna shoot threes from the outside, both teams are gonna let it go. The only advantage I say is probably Wisconsin has more star players, I guess, because who's James Madison basketball, right? But they played well this year, though. James Madison as a group, they were ranked at one point. But AJ Storr, though, he was Big Ten. He led I think he was third in scoring overall for points in the Big Ten tournament this past little tourney they just had last weekend. They ended up losing the championship, so that was a tough one to swallow, obviously, for them. But they had the star caliber. They should get it done, but I will not be surprised if they lose in a low scoring in the mid-60s game to James Madison, because James Madison just hits enough shots to beat them in that one.
I was going to say, there's a lot going into this as well. You got the 12 versus 5 dynamic, so a lot of people are going to take James Madison based off of that. They're going to see the records. You have Wisconsin with a good record, but I think 22-13, something, middle of the road-ish for college standards. And James Madison with the 31-3 record coming out. So I think a lot of people are going to think James Madison's a big upset here. Do you think it's the upset, or do you think Wisconsin rolls through?
I believe Wisconsin will have enough. I think AJ Storr showed that, I'm the man here in Wisconsin. It's my team this past weekend. So I hope they kind of roll with that logic, that he is the best player on the floor. So I do believe they get it done this week coming up. But that's not that will not be an upset to me. That is another good team beating another good program. That's what that would be.
Now, the other teams in this I got to touch on as well. You have the big gun like Houston. You have Duke, who's always the high-profile team. You have John Calipari's team with Kentucky in this region as well. You have teams like the Florida Gators, and don't forget Marquette as well, who is the big dog if it wasn't for UConn out there as well. What
Absolutely.
team do you think doesn't get out of this first round? Which team do you think that a lot of people are going to have their bracket busted because of a team in the South region?
I definitely believe, sadly, it is the Duke Blue Devils this year. Sadly.
Brett's going to hate that.
Oh, yeah. Another great guy, another good friend of ours. He definitely is going to hate that. But it's the cold reality, I think, this time around. Vermont, another team I watch too much college basketball, guys. I will blatantly admit this. But I caught them early in the year in a tournament down in Myrtle Beach, and they are lights out. They are for real. They can shoot it. They trust one another. They're an older team, got guys no one talks about, reads about, but they are tough. They are tough as nails, and they are going to let it go from three. And again, I think it's a trap game for Duke. Duke doesn't really hit too much from outside. I feel like if they have that little slump, that little bad shooting day, it's going to be a long night for them because Vermont's going to play their style no matter what. Those teams like that, they're not afraid of the moment. They're not going to be. They stick to what they do. So I definitely think the Duke Blue Devils though do not make it out day one.
We're going Vermont Catamounts over the Duke Blue Devils. That's tough. I am gonna have a tough time picking that one, but I have you on here. I'm gonna trust you here, and I do think Kyle Flipkowski may go home sad. You're convincing me here. It's a tough one,
sure.
But I'm assuming you don't think Vermont's gonna make it all the way out of the region. Who wins the South? Who is it? Is it Houston? Is it one of these teams like Kentucky, Florida, Marquette, Texas Tech, Wisconsin? Even like you said, who wins the South?
I'm praying that John Calipari does his job. And he understands he probably has the best guard in America by far, I believe, in my opinion. I think he should be a lot higher up on the draft board.
Rob Dillingham you're talking about here.
Rob Dillingham is who I'm referring to, absolutely, brother. He is a different breed. I don't think no one in the country can stay in front of him. Houston's problem is when Houston does lose, they tend to not score that day. They have a bad drought. Kentucky, if they lose games, it's in somewhere in the 90s, 80s. When they win games, it's somewhere in the hundreds and 90s. So that's their style. They're going to get up and down. I think they can come out of the region pretty easily. Marquette has one big guy. I don't think that will be enough to hold off Kentucky's front line at all. Kentucky's got a big team even on the bench. They got, again, NBA guys coming off the bench for them. I just believe if you can get it together for 6 games or whatever it is, you should be able to come out of here and probably make the Final Four. I do believe Houston gets beat. They had to kill themselves in the Big 12 this year. So I believe all that wear and tear in that conference was a lot. I believe Kentucky now hits a little stride here and gets it done.
I do think a lot of people are with you on that. For even the people who don't watch college basketball, Kentucky's one of those schools you just tend to pick through your bracket. You can't eliminate them ever when they go against – they're not in the same region, but I'm looking here at the next region to talk about. A team like a Colgate comes around. Who's thinking Colgate over a team, like a big Kentucky? So Kentucky, like even Oakland first round here. We know Oakland. Shout out to my buddy or my boy Kay Felder out here. But other than that, I can't name another Oakland player to save my life. So I do think Kentucky rolls them. I would hope. We'll see though.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to Kendrick Nunn, not in the NBA no more.
There's another one. There you go.
Alumni.
This guy, the biggest college ball head I know. Simple right there. We kind of hinted, you talked about Duke getting upset in the first round, possibly. I'm assuming you don't think the same for their big rival, North Carolina, number 1 seed. Found out tonight they're going against Wagner first round in that region. Like I said, I'm assuming you think North Carolina wins that one. Hopefully that's not a big spoiler alert. Where's the upset in this bracket? Where am I finding an upset in the West?
There's a pretty tough matchup in the 6-11 matchup. Clemson's very tough in the ACC. They were able to beat North Carolina in Carolina this year. Good win for them. They're tough inside. But styles make games, and, that's just how it works in the NCAA tournament. New Mexico guards are going to literally be guarding them 94 feet and giving them hell for 40 minutes. If Joe Girard and the gang show up, they get out of there. Should be easy with the big guys. But that's a game I've circled as well. 6-11 matchup that can go one ugly way, and it could be New Mexico just layup after layup after layup.
Now that one, I was looking, I think, not that we're talking about betting here, but the betting favor has become New Mexico. I think by a point and a half, where a lot of people are jumping on them, probably because of the record they're seeing. But regardless, 11 over 6, that is good for a lot of people to know there, that they may just think number 6, go take them, be safe. I got to talk about them. You may have seen them up here at number 12 seed. I got to talk about my boys. Grand Canyon going against St. Mary's. That's another 12 seed. I love the situation here. Am I going to have my heart broken at 10 at night, or am I going to see Grand Canyon beat St. Mary's? What do you think here?
That is probably another this year's NCAA tournament, anything after 10 this year has been hell to deal with. If you're a 6, 5, 7, if you're anyone like that, you're probably playing a really good team. There's a reason Grand Canyon won 30 games at that point. I can definitely, I'm leaning towards Grand Canyon like you. Shout out to you for my guy's been riding Grand Canyon for the last 5 to 6 years that we've been friends. He's been riding that train, and they are good every year. Every year, I can go look at Grand Canyon at some point. They probably won 25 games.
And like zero NBA players.
zero guys. But they look, I think definitely that's a team that can upset St. Mary's. Again, styles make matchups. St. Mary's plays a slower, more calm basketball game. They slow it down. They shoot open threes. Remind me a lot of like a BYU type of team. So again, if Grand Canyon can probably speed those guys up, make it a little bit of a foot race, I believe Grand Canyon can come out of that game with no problem.
Nah, I staying in this region before I ask you for the winner of this region. We have Mississippi State, Michigan State. That's actually the first game of the real tournament. It's going to be Thursday, 12:15. First game that's on. It feels like that game is always the one where you watch it and it goes wrong for you. No matter what side of that 9-8 you're on, you pick the wrong side. So I have to have you, for our viewers, save us, Tevin. Save us. Is it Mississippi State? Is it Michigan State? Who are we picking to eventually face North Carolina, you'd assume?
I will never in my entire life of living, guys, as long as I am alive, pick against Tom Izzo in the NCAA tournament. He's just a different breed of man come this time of the year. Their problem is they don't get production inside from their guys. But again, I always say the best guards in America usually win you games. There's a few times we've seen some big guys win, but usually their guards are really good on those teams, and it's just tough. They were in the Elite Eight last year, I believe. They played Kansas State, right? And the Marquise Noel knocks them out.
There you go.
It's tough for me to just be like, yeah, they're going to, they know how to turn it on. They didn't look that great last year. They weren't as bad as they were this year, but they didn't look too great last year, and they made that ridiculous run out of nowhere. So, give me Tom Izzo any day of the week to start off a 12 o'clock game, especially for the NCAA tournament.
I love it. That's exactly where my mind was on that one as well. I realized I'm down here too really quickly. Long Beach State mutually parted ways with their coach, but the coach says, hey, I'm going to stay with this conference tournament. I'm going to take these boys, and I'm going to win this whole damn thing. And guess what he does? He goes and wins the whole damn thing. Is there any shot he beats Arizona?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I didn't think so.
I think Arizona is a very, again, they're very weird. They have days they look like I don't even understand it. I got no words for it. And then there's days I'm like, wow, these guys can really just be the national champions. I just don't. I think Long Beach State luck runs out here. I just think that Arizona should be too big, too strong. Should be able to go inside early. Get on the rim. And shout out to Kylan Boswell. Probably, I think, one of the most underrated guards. There's him and another guy I'll probably touch on tonight, but he's probably one of the most underrated point guards in the country.
Who wins the West?
But shout out to Jim because he said it before the year started. North Carolina, baby, they run the table there. If you want to talk about old, they have, I believe, 2 fifth-year guys that start for them. They have a redshirt junior. Point guards is a senior, and then they have probably one of the best pure point guards that they've been able to recruit in the last 20 years in Elliot Cadeau. So good luck to anyone that wants to run up and down with Armando Bacot and the boys because that team is tough. They're good. They didn't look so great first 10 games of the year, a little up and down, lost a couple tough ones. But, man, when they figured it out, and they look good. I don't care what happened against NC State. That was okay. It's okay. Stuff happens. They run away with this one. I think they run through that. Even Arizona, I think they might see at the end. I think they kill them too.
No, I do know a team that wants to put up with UNC who thinks they can go beat UNC, and it's the number 1 overall seed of this tournament in the East region, the UConn Huskies. Now, Tevin, am I hearing for everyone that these guys are just unstoppable here at UConn? What do you think they run through this East? What do you think here? Is UConn the real deal this year?
They are the real deal. There's obviously no joke about it. Again, another team, two fifth-year guards. They probably have the most, I think, behind, in front of Kylan Boswell. They probably have the most underrated player in college basketball in Tristan Newton. As good as they are and as many guys as they got, Tristan Newton leads them in points, assists, and rebounds at the one spot. So that says a lot about the kid's game. You have NBA guys all over the roster as well that are going to be first round picks, but they are the real deal. Dan Hurley gets those guys to come play on and on. You could just tell that when your team buys in, they're bought into the system. They know what they're doing.
I have to ask. We touched base on it before this as well. Am I wrong here? Is this definitely the best region in the March Madness tournament? Am I wrong to say it's the South? Is it the East?
I think the East has the. I like you. I like what you said about the South. I think the South is probably the best region. I get it with the whole everyone was going crazy with the tournament winners, and I get that. But people don't get this is the NCAA tournament. This isn't we're playing every day. You do get that day off. It's a little different, recovery time. Sometimes in those conference tournaments, you could play a team coming in playing 3 games in 3 days, but they're hot, like you're just kind of keeping it flowing. I've been in those AAU days and stuff like that, playing basketball. It's how it works, but it's a little different now. I think some of the teams that did win their conference are a little overrated, and that's just how I feel about things. I could be wrong, right? But that's how I feel about things for sure. They should win but they're due for a hiccup. It's possible in that region for sure. There's good teams that match up, same kind of teams. Good offensive teams some nights, but there's a lot of defense in that region as of right now.
Well, before I ask you who you think wins the region, I asked you for the other 3. I'll ask you for this one as well. What's the game I'm circling in this first round to make sure on Thursday or Friday is on my television? No matter what time of day it is, which one do I have to tune in for?
I definitely believe that. I think the best game of that day could be San Diego State UAB. I think they match up kind of the same way. I think they're the same kind of teams. Very stingy guards that get into the lanes, play very good defense, and then they got big dudes that are just athletes. They will go get it on the rim. They will play the same kind of, like I said, same kind of style to me. That's just how they match up. And on all the teams in there, I literally think they're just identical of one another. They have the same kind of just. Lamont Butler's a very good guard. My guy Eric Gaines is a very good guard out of UAB. So there's going to be, very tough matchups in there. And I believe that is probably the game to watch in the first round in that region. For sure.
Do we so that game we have San Diego State talking, spreads here. They're favored by 6.5. I've seen a lot of people swear by UAB plus 6.5. You think that's a trap because they're popular? Or you think that has a good chance of happening?
I definitely believe that has a good chance of happening. Only because I definitely believe UAB has a shot to beat them.
Or keep it within 6,
Yeah, definitely keep it within 6. I just think they win flat out, keep it within 6. Should be no problem. I don't believe San Diego State. They made a deep run last year. This year, though, offensively, they look a lot more stagnant. They don't look like the same offensive group they had at the end of the year last year. The ball's kind of sticking when I watched them a few nights ago. So for me, I would definitely go with the UAB, who looks more in sync at this point of the season.
Now, do I have to? I'm going to ask, I guess, again to be sure. Are you picking UConn to come out of this quadrant?
The only team I can see knocking them out because of star power is my guy. Shout out to Illinois. But Terrence Shannon Jr. has been on a tear. My guy got in trouble in the middle of the year, little hiccup, but since then he's been on a run that no one's even talking about. I talked big about AJ Storr, about being the number 3 scorer in the Big Ten tournament. He was killing it. Well, the number 1 scorer is Terrence Shannon Jr., who destroyed the tournament. They have a big team. They do have a deep bench. They will go 8-9 deep with no problem. They have no problem literally spreading the ball around there. They probably have, like I said, probably the most underrated big dude in Dawkins down there. Guy can shoot threes, play outside. Shout out to Prolific Prep and Jalen Green. They were all teammates together. So I definitely believe that Illinois can give UConn trouble. I definitely that's a team. If they match up at some point late in that bracket, that will be like the little run in UConn might have.
But you're gonna go UConn though here.
I have to go UConn
Okay.
though. I feel like just off the strength and respect, you got to take the national champs who look great this year. They're rolling. I think they lost one game since December 20th, if I'm not mistaken. And that was to Creighton on the road, and that was it. And so what is that? 20 plus games they won.
At least, yeah.
20, yeah, it's ridiculous. Something I was looking at the statistics; they look nuts. Yeah,
and by a large margin, like not close games.
Yeah, like
either.
they were killing teams in their conference as well. It wasn't even like they were playing close games. They beat Marquette, I believe, by 30.
And that's a number two. That's a number 2 seed in this tournament. So, So we have UConn playing UNC for you, and we have Kentucky playing Purdue. So do we go UConn or UNC here?
I love, again, I believe that it's March Madness for a reason. I believe UConn has to eventually, possibly here, run out of luck. And I think UNC does get to the NCAA final.
So Purdue, Kentucky, John Calipari or Zach Edey? Which one gets to the finals and which one breaks our hearts like usual?
I will have to go with Kentucky beats them. Because Kentucky's bench, when they bring in Dillingham and Shepard, are going to be the difference in that game. And I believe, we're going to get that UNC-Kentucky matchup, battle the Blue Bloods at the end.
You know what I'm going to ask you here? Who's getting their banner? Who's in immortality as the national champion of the 2024 men's NCAA tournament?
I will never pick against Carolina if they're in the finals. So Carolina gets to the finals there. I believe they win the whole thing. They'll cut down on that.
North Carolina Tar Heels, you think do it, huh? And I think that's a great pick. We talked about. I like them a lot this season.
Those have been your boys. You picked them before the year started. Just again looking at the brackets, they'll be rolling in five games in a row. Again, I think if I believe UConn should get out of the East. Just off the 90%. But if they could get clipped, and if they do, it's going to be way before that. You know what I mean? I believe if UConn's going to lose, it's going to be before the Final Four. But if they get there, the only team I see beating them is UNC, though. And I just think that Hubert Davis needs that. I believe Bacot 2 years ago blew the championship. They were killing my boys in Kansas by like 30 at halftime, something ridiculous. We came back, and God bless America for that one. That was a beautiful comeback out of the boys. But it's tough for me to not see UNC cut it down here though. They look great.
Picks. I got one final question for you. Are you team make one bracket and stick with it, or team make as many brackets as you can to pick a winner? What's the right way?
If there's 30 brackets, guys, make 30 brackets, okay? Because it's the NCAA tournament. And my deep sleeper though of the night, my last thing of college basketball, is Drake basketball, guys. Drake basketball. They play. I believe they get out of that Washington State game, and I believe they have to play Iowa State after. I like Iowa State, but their problem is when they lose, they don't score, and Drake can score. So I have Drake and for sure in my main bracket, definitely going to the Sweet 16, beating Iowa State in the second round as well. So Drake basketball, everybody. Tune in.
How many games does Drake have to win until Drake shows up to a Drake game?
Oh, man, I hope it's after the first one he's there that weekend. Because if Drake's there versus Iowa State, Drake's winning.
Tevin, thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate it a lot. We'll make sure to have you back on soon to talk about either later on in the tournament, more games about that, or we'll talk about other sports because we got fantasy football coming up. And I think this is a year where it's been every 5 years. I'm finally getting a better record than this year.
Shout out to the champ, baby.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
Hey, love you, brother. Always, man. Thank you. God bless.